Hrant Dink. The history of the Turkish press is marked by a painful trajectory, where dualities such as government opposition, monoplural voices, and freedom censorship have never ceased to exist. This history is filled with journalists who have struggled and paid a price for the sake of press freedom. In this sense, Hrant Dink was neither the first nor the last journalist to face such a fate. However, his presence served as a guiding light for the journalists who came after him. The values he stood for became a source of inspiration. Dink was assassinated because he was clearly not aligned with the ruling government, because he was a member of a minority, and because, in my view, he was a journalist who stood on the side of truth. One day, in broad daylight, he was shot in the back on one of Istanbul's busiest streets. The day Dink was shot was also the day human dignity was struck from behind. The perpetrators of Dink's murder also threatened other intellectuals in the country, creating a climate of fear that still persists today. Journalists who, like Dink, take a principled stance continue to be unjustly imprisoned by the same regime. Every year, on January 19th, the day he was murdered, thousands gather in front of the former offices of the Ajos newspaper to commemorate him. This annual act of remembrance clearly demonstrates that Dink holds undeniable importance not only in the history of Turkish journalism but also in the country's recent political history. Through the newspaper he founded, Agos, Hrant Dink went beyond being the voice of the Armenian community in Turkey. He became one of the rare journalists who enabled society to confront its past, to reconcile with different identities, and to rethink a multicultural social structure. His journalistic language consistently centered on a moral and humane approach that lay outside the boundaries of the state's official historical narrative. This approach remains one of the core principles of ethical journalism and is of vital importance in multi-ethnic societies like Turkey. Unfortunately, this stance was perceived as a threat by certain factions within the state. Dink was subjected to prolonged smear campaigns, and in 2007, he was murdered just outside the Agos newspaper offices, near the former Kylie courthouse. His assassination was not only an attack on an individual's life, but also a direct assault on press freedom of expression and pluralism. Therefore, Dink's death signified not merely the silencing of a journalist, but the suppression of a dissenting voice in the press, and a voice for social reconciliation.
In the 1990s, when the war in Turkey's southeast was at its most intense, Armenians were frequently vilified and subject to racist abuse, despite having no connection to the events. In an effort to combat this widespread hate, a few intellectuals of the Armenian community founded the newspaper Agos in 1996, with Hrant Dink serving as editor-in-chief. The first bilingual newspaper to be published in both Turkish and Armenian, Agos aimed to strengthen the bonds among the diverse elements of the Armenian community whose ties to its mother tongue had grown weak, and to build bridges between the Armenian community and public at large in Turkey by bringing together the concerns and major news items affecting both. Over the years, Hrant Dink wrote and spoke on a wide range of issues, including democratization, identity politics, relations with the European Union, relations with Armenia, cultural heritage, problems in education, and coming to terms with the past. One of the central focuses of his speeches was democratization in Turkey and the creation of a just and equal society.
Ben orada yaşamak istiyorum. Orada yaşayacağım, sonuna kadar da orada yaşayacağım. Benim ilacım, her şeyim orası. Ve orada insanlarla kurduğum ilişki. İnanılmaz bir kavga içerisindeyim. Kavgayı da Ermeni olduğum için, Ermeniler için yapmıyorum yani. Ben o Türkiye'nin, bölgemin, insanların, oranın da cennet olması için yapıyorum. Ve Ermeni sorunu, bütün genel sorunlar içerisinde sadece bir tane sorun değil.
Türkiye Cumhuriyeti yurttaşlığını, yurtseverliğini ve Türkiye'li kimliğini hele de hiç kimseye öyle bedavadan terk etme. Sen önce kendi kafanda vur. Ben kimim, ben neyim bu ülkede? Türkiye'de yaşayan bir Ermeni nedir? Önce onu vur. Yeri geldiğinde Türk'üm dedirteceksin bana, yeri geldiğinde Ermeni dönü diyeceksin bana. Yok öyle yağma. Ben Türkiye'liyim ve Türkiye Ermenisiyim.
When Agos published an article in 2004 suggesting that one of Turkey's national heroes, Sabiha Gökçen, the adopted daughter of Turkey's founding father and the country's first female fighter pilot, had Armenian roots, Hrant Dink became the target of an organized and systematic campaign on the part of the army, politicians, the media, the judiciary, and nationalist groups. He was openly threatened. Legal cases followed one after the next, as did convictions.
Benim üzerime gelinmesinin temel nedeni nedir? Özellikle devletin derinliğinin bana haddimi bildirme operasyonu var şu anda benim karşımda. Çünkü bana bunu kendileri söyledi. Genelkurmay yayınladığı bildiride bu haberi yayınlayan kişi ülkenin birliğine ve bütünlüğüne nifak sokmaktadır. Ertesi gün münasip bir şekilde bir yerlere götürüldüm ve bana sana haddini bildireceğiz dendi. O gün bugündür de ben 301'de devam ediyorum, haddim bildirilmeye çalışıyorum.
In the middle of the day, on January 19th, 2007, Hrant Dink was shot twice from behind and assassinated as he entered the Agos building.
Hrant Dink menfur bir suikasta kurban gitmiştir.
Gazetesinin önünde yaşamını yitirdi.
Şu anda yaklaşık 1500-2000 kişilik bir kalabalık olduğunu tahmin ediyorum.
Most Turks are
Legal proceedings related to the case began in 2007 and are still ongoing today. Yet to date, there has been no serious investigation or prosecution of those who made Hrant Dink a target, threatened him, or turned a blind eye to what was happening. The people responsible for his murder still have not been identified or punished for their crimes.
Yaşı kaç olursa olsun, 17 veya 27 olsun, katil kim olursa olsun, bir zamanlar bebek olduklarını biliyorum. Bir bebekten bir katil